everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
Vince, today's question comes from Comic Web Reviews, who asks, should there be more superhero sidekicks in comic books? That's what we're going to talk about today. So there was a time when there were a lot more sidekicks than we have these days, where, not that we don't still have them, but where it just seemed like they were being invented a lot, you know, especially more in like kind of the Silver Age, well, really more Golden Age actually, if you if you think about it, because like, you know, Marvel doesn't have a bunch of sidekicks. It seemed like DC's where all the sidekicks were, you know, and Marvel had a lot more like the kind of standalone heroes,
or people who are just so young that why would they have a sidekick?
Yeah, exactly, right? Because the idea with the sidekick was, you know, you had like a 35-year-old superhero, and then he was like mentoring, you know, kind of a prodigy or something. So, do you find yourself missing this these days, where like superheroes don't have sidekicks as much, and even Batman seems to work more solo these days than he used to?
I don't miss it at all. I really don't care. I'll be honest with you. Sorry, if the point of asking the question is, please give a reason to like sidekicks, I don't care. I think sidekicks can work well, depending. I like the idea that somebody comes into existence. Let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, Lex Luthor were to genetically engineer somebody that's like a young Superman. So let's say that happened somehow.
Yeah, I don't know, that's a little far-fetched, Vince.
And then say Superman had to deal with him and sort of take him under his wing. See, I'm cool with that. That's interesting. That's a story in and of itself.
It's also not a permanent change, right? It's not like this guy always has a sidekick, and if that kid grows up or dies or something, I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas here. If that person grows up or dies or something, then somebody else has to take the mantle. You know what I mean? And with a situation like that, it's not like that. It's just, you know, you mentor this character for a while, and the story arc is finished, or the you know, several stories where that character is there for a while finishes up. I think that kind of thing is okay.
Yeah, you know, I think it's kind of strange, like a Spartan society idea, that all of these people have to have prodigies for the next generation of warriors. I think that would be interesting for a story if the sidekicks are the point of the story. But just to say, have random sidekicks invented and given to superheroes, that seems so strange to me. Now, I'll say that I like the idea of a supporting cast.
Yeah, sure.
You could say that...
or allies they work with every so often.
Yeah, I was going to say the Hulk doesn't really have a sidekick, but then again we have Rick Jones, who is sidekick-ish, but really he's more of just a supporting cast member. He's there to help the Hulk along.
I think it's interesting that Captain America had a sidekick in the 40s, but not later.
Yeah, which never really made sense. I feel like that was just a product of the times.
But that's my point, is that it was a product of the times, and what's cool about it is it was so much a product of the times that it doesn't make sense real life-wise, but it does comic book-wise. The idea that like, they kept Bucky in his backstory, even though, because they didn't have to. I mean, like, Captain America was a timely character in the 40s before Marvel existed. They could have thrown all that away in Marvel if they'd wanted to, because that was a new continuity. You know, anything that happened with Captain America, Human Torch, characters like that, they could have just tossed out the window if they'd wanted to. But they left Bucky in the continuity, and I think that's interesting because it's like, okay, in this day and age, in the world of comics, it's like the you know, it's like the publication history was, where back then we had sidekicks. It didn't matter what you were, even if you were a soldier wearing a costume, you had a sidekick. But when it comes back into the present, whatever the present is, whatever time present day is, and he gets thought out, he's not running around with a sidekick anymore. It's not like somebody else had to take the role of Bucky, and there have been different stories where that's happened, but I'm just saying that, like, by and large, for the most part, in the present day, Captain America doesn't have a sidekick. I think that's interesting.
You know, there's been several stories that Captain America is just reluctant to have a sidekick, where he's afraid of having that protege who is just ultimately going to die in the line of fire, and there's nothing he can do about it because the kid is just too young.
And also because the kid's not a super soldier.
Exactly. What's he going to do? He's just a teenager. He's going to get shot.
You know, and they tried the same thing with Batman after Jason Todd died, and they still gave him a sidekick a lot faster than I think maybe it made sense for them to, but I can't complain because I love Tim Drake and he's my favorite Robin, but...
Yeah. You know, I feel like, especially in Identity Crisis, I think is what that is, They have really interesting moments for Tim Drake to be Robin. I feel like there's a nice build-up for this kid. I feel like there's plenty of reasons to say Tim Drake should be Robin. I feel like there are an adequate number of reasons that say Batman would let Tim Drake be Robin.
Absolutely. Sure.
So, maybe the question isn't necessarily should there be more. Maybe the question is why do people like them, and could there possibly be a resurgence?
I just don't know that the idea of the kid sidekick would make as much sense. I can see... The thing is, if you're not a kid sidekick, you're just kind of partners. A lot of the time, it seems like. And I mean, like, even with parodies of this idea, like the Tick and Arthur, you know, Arthur's not a kid sidekick, but he's smaller and he's scrawnier, and, well, I mean, he's fat, but he's smaller, he's scrawnier, and he doesn't have superpowers, and so, like, you know, there's something about him that's so much more diminished that it would be hard to imagine him going off and being his own superhero, and so, you know, that's why that kind of dynamic works. But most of the time, by and large these days, we have partners before we have actual sidekicks, and where, like, you would almost have to, like, guess who is the sidekick supposed to be. But I think even beyond that, we have like loners or teams of 500,000 people.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what comics are these days. So I'm with you. First of all, should there be more? I'm not sure that there's a void that needs to be filled with sidekicks not being around as much anymore.
I do feel like there is a nostalgia for them. That
sure, yeah.
The reason that people would want more sidekicks is because they remember sidekicks from back in the day. They remember identifying with them, wanting to grow up to be Captain America, and wanting to become Bucky in the short term. So,
that's a great point. Yeah, it was kind of an identifiable thing. That, well, you know what? Historically, that's a really great point, Vince. Because historically, the point of the kid sidekick is that mostly kids were reading comics, or at least that was their largest audience, and so they had this character they could kind of relate to while they were looking up to this other character, precisely. But it's not like that as much now. You know, now it's more adults reading comics, and so, you know, the realism, or somebody's idea of realism, is continually creeping in more and more. I don't see anybody, and this isn't to say that this wouldn't happen, but I would have a hard time seeing anybody replacing Damian Wayne as Robin right now. Because it seems like the only reason Batman has a Robin right now is because he has a son, and his son refuses to not go out and fight people. So he's Robin because that's how he can keep his eye on him and make sure that he's, you know, doing the right things. And so, like, you know, the only reason he has a sidekick is because it's because it's his 11-year-old son.
That's interesting. It's a great point. You know, I feel like if we're going to have more sidekicks, I'm not saying there should be more. I'm saying if they're going to be more, there needs to be a logical reason. Or
I'm also not saying you can't do them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm not going to sit around going, I'm not going to like comic books anymore until there's more sidekicks. Like, it's not a problem for me.
Yeah, I don't miss the idea of having a sidekick for everybody. But then again, I don't have a problem with them. Like for example, I forget how long ago Speedy became Arsenal, but I like the idea that Arsenal's not necessarily a full-fledged hero yet. I like the idea.
Arsenal kind of turned into a bad guy for a while, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I've been reading DC for a while. So.
Well, and of course, you know, it's a moot point after 52, but yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least it might be, I don't know.
Who knows? Cookie! But you know, with the last time I was...
more cookies in comic books. I think
that's more cookies.
You know, what's missing for comics?
I think
cookies.
Cookie Kid and the Baked Avenger. Actually, the Baked Avenger.
Let's think of some other things that start with C. Comics start with C. Who cares about comics? Anyway.
It's round. It's small. It's edible. It's a cookie.
So anyway.
But this video has derailed.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think there are good reasons to have kids
sidekicks.
You got me doing it now. But I don't miss them at all.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on it too.
Sure.
I think that recently, because I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up before we end here. I think that a lot of it would be wrong of me to not mention Alpha right now. Alpha is the is the sidekick they kind of gave Spider-Man for an arc recently, and he was this kid that got this like crazy, huge, amazing power, and it was like this power that grows exponentially, and it's and like the idea was, it was really bizarre. The idea was that his powers expand as the universe expands. It was really kind of bizarre, and it happened because of something that that Peter Parker thought he had found himself. He thought he had discovered it, and he called it the Parker particle until he found out that Reed Richards had actually discovered this himself years ago, but didn't continue with the research because it was too unstable. And so then Peter Parker continued with the research, and then then this kid ended up getting superpowers, and of course Spider-Man is what, responsible for this, right?
Yeah.
And the and then of course the goofy thing for me, I mentioned this on the channel before, but I don't think Vince has heard about this. The goofy thing for me was Reed Richards didn't tell Peter Parker about this while he was working on it, like, because I mean, like Peter Parker put together like the symposium thing for it, and I was sort of like, okay, Reed Richards, did you not like notice like in the newspaper or the news or anything that this was happening? You didn't like show up and be like, Peter Parker, don't make that molecule, it's unstable. But whatever, it happened. And anyway, so it felt very much like this sort of forced way to give Spider-Man a sidekick, and of course it didn't work out, and he's not a sidekick now. But there's questions about whether or not he'll come back, because I think he left quicker than anybody thought he was going to. Spider-Man is not a character that needs a kid's sidekick. Like,
I like the idea of the Parker tickle, but Parker tickle.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I don't know. I didn't read it, but your description doesn't sound too ungodly for us. It does sound a little contrived. I'll say that. It does sound a little contrived. Oh, I hate contrivances. I love the idea.
Think it's forced because it was like, the thing is, the way they pitched it was Spider-Man's getting the sidekick, and I'm just like, who cares?
It's like, guess who's dying this weekend? But it's the Human Torch. But I love the idea that there is a particle that is, or there is a molecule that is too unstable for Reed Richards to use.
That's a good point.
Because their costumes, unstable molecules.
That's funny.
I love that idea. Oh, I wish it were better.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching Geeks Not Nerds. Let us know what you think about this. Do you miss sidekicks? Do you think we ought to have more sidekicks in comics? Leave your comments. Let us know. And also, if there's a topic you'd like us to discuss in a future video, leave that in the comments as well. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to support your local comic book store.
We'll see you next time.